Welcome back to the Convo Couch, everyone. Pasta Jardula here.
And I'm Fiorella.
And Johnny Sue is on the ones and twos. I was going to say Sonny Lattieri here over there for the whole...
Fam.
Well, we should tell our audience. Take a guess. We're not going to tell you. Our intro, the doom 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 doom. What movie was that inspired by? Johnny, can you hit the button and play that one more time? There it is. Tell us what movie. Tell us what scene.
Oh my gosh.
If you can.
It's not that hard when you think about it.
It's not. I'm gonna be looking at the chat to see what's going on. It's a fam movie. We all love the movie, right?
Yeah.
We all love the movie.
We do.
It's an old school movie. So yeah, you tell us what movie inspired our intro, and maybe I'll send you a shirt or something. Trey Wright and Grant Jarvis came walking through the door in Rokfin, fam, going, hey! Like Johnny Cash, showing us love. Thank you, Trey Wright.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Grant. And thank you to everyone else who came over to the Rokfin and the YouTubes. And there's some people up on Facebook and Twitch, too, as well. But if you want to get over to the Rokfin, ROKFIN, that's where we can need you. That's where we need you most. That's where you can show the love and really help us out, because they don't censor us, fam, and that's important.
They don't.
No. We have over almost 100 people watching on Rokfin. It's not E.T. Sorry. No.
On YouTube.
It's not The Godfather. No, it's not Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. It's not Mary Poppins. Look at this.
Guys,
it's not Tron.
Think about that music.
It's not The Truman Show.
Think about the music, okay? That's all I got to say. Think about the music. So, guys, we're going to get started because we have a hefty show.
Yes.
And we have a lot of information. So, I'm just going to...
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, here, I'll put up the title for you, see? There you go.
So, a lot of people have been asking us about Ecuador and Peru, and we're just going to give overviews of what's going on in both countries. Ecuador already had their elections.
As far as their elections, yes.
They elected Guillermo Lasso, who was the banker, the right-wing neoliberal type of candidate. Initially, when we were covering Ecuador, Arauz was ahead. Then that was the leftist candidate that was part of the Correísta movement. And there were a lot of reasons why you could say there was election manipulation, but not in the sense of election fraud. According to Medea Benjamin and all of the people that were there watching the elections and making sure everything was okay, there wasn't anything done with the ballots as far as they could see as observers, but there was a lot of just corruption that helped propel the victory of the right wing, Guillermo Lasso, instead of the leftists. And there was also one element that nobody's really talking about, I think, save Benjamin Norton, is that just like here where we have like Elizabeth Warren's and faux left candidates, this candidate named Yaku Perez came in, and he was an indigenous guy. We went over him a little bit, but he was actually tied to the U.S. government. He was meeting up with officials. He was pushing and had connections with these NGO groups. Mm-hmm. And he took away a vast portion of the vote from the left. So it was like when Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders were running in the primary, and they split that vote. And by default in Ecuador, if the first election, you have to get a certain percentage in order to get into the second runoff, right? So there's two sequences, the first and the second. So because of Yaku Perez, then the neoliberal candidate was able to make it to the second runoff, even though Arauz actually had the majority. If there hadn't been that spoiler, so to speak, then he would have just won it from the start. And so there's all these elements that we're going to talk about. Yeah.
I also like to point out the fact that like Medea Benjamin and Ben Norton, they're not election integrity specialists too. So, I mean, like I told Johnny, and I've said to you, it's like, we got to get over there and get on the ground, because I want to know all the framework of what they use and how they use things. So I just want to put that out as an underlying kind of like quote.
Yeah. But I mean, we weren't there. So according to them, the elections were, whatever, fair. But again, that doesn't mean that the elections were actually valid, because there were so many underlying issues. So the dirty campaign underlying Ecuador's free and fair election. So Medea Benjamin and Leonardo Flores actually wrote about their experience and, you know, and what happened with Arauz. And yeah, they talked about how the election was on April 11th. It led to a 5-point victory by conservative banker Guillermo Lasso. And on the surface, it was clean and professional election, as our Code Pink official observers delegation witnessed, but a fraud-free process for casting and counting ballots does not mean the election was fair and free. Behind the scenes was a monumentally unequal playing field and dirty campaign designed to quash Arauz and Arauz win. Arauz is a 36-year-old follower, of course, of former President Rafael Correa in his Citizens Revolution. He barely got on the ballot. That's true. He had to really fight for it. He wanted to have, what's his name? Correa as a VP. They wouldn't allow it. The party he tried to run under was the National Electoral Council. And it was banned actually by the National Electoral Council, and his supporters formed a new party, and they also banned that party. So eventually, they found one party that let them run under them, but you know it was late in the game. So the other campaigns had a longer start. So let's watch a video that kind of explains some of the points I've made regarding how this happened.
I would say that Sunday, in terms of voting and the vote count, we're free from fraud. The problem with the elections, in my opinion, and in really the delegation's opinion, goes before Sunday. The Arauz campaign did not have a level playing field. They faced many challenges that the Lasso campaign did not. The Arauz campaign, they were forbidden from using their political party. They tried to form a new party and were also not allowed to form a new party, and they eventually had to kind of borrow a spot from a smaller party. This led to Arauz being, formally registered as a candidate in December, which, just a few months before the elections, whereas other candidates already had like a 4 or 5 month head start. On top of that, you had so much lawfare against many of the leaders of the Citizens Revolution, including, of course, Jorge Glass, Rafael Correa, Paula Pabon. So many people that were very kind of integral to this movement, to this party, were either forced abroad or put in jail. And so you kind of decapitated the leadership of a party. This is how the lawfare affected the results of the outcome. And of course, there was such a very dirty campaign on the part of Lasso in terms of fake news. And, they accused Andrés Arauz of wanting to de-dollarize the economy, which was completely false. They tried to link Arauz to the ELN, the guerrilla movement in Colombia, and that was also false. But these things had an impact on voters, I think, because they began to distrust Arauz. They kind of linked Moreno, the current president, more to Arauz than they did to Lasso. And from what we learned over the past week was that Lasso was almost the guy behind the scenes, governing here in Ecuador for the past 4 years. So many voters that I talked to on Sunday said, well, I'm voting for change. I hope this country's going to transform. But they were all Lasso voters. We were in a heavily Lasso district. And so it was very strange to me how they thought they could be voting for change and also voting for Lasso, when we're really going to see a continuation of the Moreno policies under Lasso, because they're the same policies.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. I mean, because there is more than one ways to kind of sway an election too as well. We know this. There's multiple ways.
Yeah, there's multiple ways.
This is kind of using the media and all the manipulation behind the scenes.
Yeah. And that's the truth. And when I looked into the elections of how they are done in Ecuador, it's hard to find information. But what I did find was it doesn't have like the electronic type of system we have here. They fill out papers, they put them in like a little ballot box, like old school style, or you put it in the ballot, then it gets counted right there. Yeah. And that doesn't mean that there can't be cheating. It just means that I personally believe it's more difficult when you have counted paper ballots with people there counting them. Ecuador's elections haven't been notoriously like ours in any way, shape, or form. So I would like to go there to just look into the chain of custody a little bit more.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I find it hard from the pictures I saw for people to have cheated in such a way. I don't put it past them, but as far as everybody who has been there says, that didn't happen. But one of the elements that they didn't mention in this video is Yaku Perez. Yaku Perez, like I said, he was the indigenous candidate that used a lot of it's very similar to here, the very social justice issues to really take from Arauz. And here's Camila with a tweet about Yaku Perez. She said, Yaku Perez interviewed with Bolivian fash media Bol today, where he made comparisons of Evo with Saddam Hussein and Adolf Hitler, and again said Evo and Correa practice authoritarianism. He is, however, stoked for the destitution in store for Ecuador with his ally Lasso taking power. All in a day's work for environmentalists. Avoid anything remotely leftist like the plague, but spend time with Ecuadorian and Bolivian fascist media. Now, what she means is he is also supported by the U.S., and these NGOs, and Lasso is a banker. So they actually have this very similar funding and similar ties. So that's a huge part of why he was like the spoiler candidate. And just like, we're a little suspect of like all elections, Ecuador's UNES alliance filed an objection to the election results. And that is Andres Arauz alliance, and it's objecting to more than 1,500 electoral records that gave victory to Guillermo Lasso. They want a recount of the votes in Ecuador's April 11th presidential election. So that's basically what's happening, and it's an appeal. And the objection was presented Tuesday. It was the last day to possibly challenge the results was on April 18th at the end of the scrutiny. So they waited till the last minute. I don't know if that's going to do anything, but they're saying that they're going to do this and object to the election. And one of the main things that happened, I believe this was yesterday, is one of the worst things that we know was going to continue to happen, because basically Moreno operated it, like they said, behind the scenes. Lasso and Moreno are very similar, so Lasso's just going to continue the same type of policies that Moreno is doing. And here it is. You have the breaking with 84 votes in favor of the National Assembly. The National Assembly has approved the privatization of the central bank of Ecuador. So
there you go.
You see IMF loans coming in, likely. This law basically places Ecuador's main financial institution in the hands of bankers and will force the state to subsidize capital fight. Basically privatizing, right? Like just privatizing. Privatization is bad for countries. And just so you guys know, Ecuador is actually, the currency is the dollar. They got rid of their old currency. They have the dollar currency. One of the main things against Arauz was they were trying to say that he was going to get rid of the dollar currency, which ended up being false, because it would destabilize the economy, etc. So this is really big. This is really bad. It sucks. That means that Ecuador is going to experience years back regressing to neoliberalism, to privatization, to control by the West and the U.S. NATO allies.
It's funny because I think 2016, I think 2022 as well, aside from all the fugazi stuff that was going on as far as the counting, the tabulation, the voting itself, and the possible fraud that can take place, the elites, the one percenters, the mainstream media, along with all your establishment candidates, were doing everything to sway the election in their favor. Not showing Bernie Sanders' speech and showing Donald Trump's emptying podium, leaving Tulsi Gabbard off the debate stage if she has a chance to. There's all these other factors in which they can sway the public's mentality to as well, by keeping people down or smearing them or killing them.
Yeah.
I mean, look what MSNBC did in Vegas when was it Chris Matthews? Was it I think his name, when he pretty much kind of invoked the Reich, the coming of the right, when Bernie Sanders won. In Vegas. I mean, it was ridiculous and stuff like that. So there are other ways, like, the 1%, the elites, and the mainstream media can sway things. And every single step of the way, it seemed like the leftist candidate here in Ecuador had trouble getting on the ballot, was pushed aside. They had to go hunting. They lost months and months of possible momentum, because there's a group of people who are not like deep down the rabbit hole when it comes to policies and political electoral politics. That's in Ecuador, that's in the United States and stuff like that. They still vote and stuff. So if you leave these candidates off the ballot and then you push your other candidates forward, you don't even know that this other guy is running. How many times did we ask people, what do you think about Tulsi Gabbard? She's like, who's Tulsi Gabbard? Right. Like, it's all the time. Right. It's, well, she's pushed aside, she's silenced. Same thing over here, same tactic. And obviously with them going the National Assembly approved the privatization of the central bank, there was a lot of special strong forces behind it helping him out.
Yeah, there were. And there was also cover-ups because WikiLeaks had released that there was money that was being funneled out of the Ecuadorian people from the Ecuadorian government into offshore accounts. And Guillermo Lasso was involved in this, and none of these people ever talked about that. And that was an actual WikiLeaks. You guys can look that up. And it's crazy to me, but at the same time, I believe it because public perception is a lot. There's a lot of fear in Latin America, and we're going to talk about that, of communism, because what happens is Venezuelans are coming into surrounding countries, especially Peru. And so all people see is any tie to Correísmo could be bad. So there's also that anti-leftist, movement also happening, as well as the pro-leftist movements happening in Latin America. And they're a little bit different than here. There's a little bit more nuance to the different regions and where these people stand.
Yeah.
Vijay Prashad said, Ecuador has privatized the central bank. Now, this would be an occasion for outrage, except that the central bank in most countries is already operates as a central bank of the private sector. Time to reclaim the entire money system. Time to euthanize capitalism. That's the problem with not just capitalism, but with the monetary system. How it's just it's already all privatized, right?
Yeah.
It's bad, and it's bad for Ecuador. It's bad for the people of Ecuador. You're going to see. Not that it was good with Lenin Moreno, but it's just going to continue down that spiral. And I don't know. It really sucks because I was hoping Ecuador would go the right route, and then Peru would come in, right?
Yeah.
Let's go check the Rokfin for a second.
Yeah, okay. Well, you still got more stuff on Ecuador. I don't want to get rid of it for you and stuff like that. But yes, we have 53 people watching on the Rokfin.
Sweet.
And thank you so much.
This is Peru.
This is Peru.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's Ecuador.
Yeah.
So that's it's funny because you told me this whole situation right here, talking about what was in WikiLeaks, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it makes me think what the United States did with Hunter Biden
mm-hmm.
and Burisma and not being able to tell that story and stuff like that. They suppress information.
Yeah.
They don't get it out there. When you control the mainstream media, whatever country you're in, you have a lot of power. You have a lot of influence, and you can dupe a lot of people. Like we said, a lot of people don't get involved too much in politics because they're either consumed or it's very boring either way.
Mm-hmm.
They don't even want to learn about that. So seeing these same tactics, and once again, Ecuador was also where Julian Assange was being held and whatnot, and we saw those people in the streets in Ecuador marching for Julian Assange. I really had a lot of hopes for Ecuador as well, but they've been planning this for a while, it seems, once they got Moreno
bought off
in.
Lenin Moreno. They bought, because Lenin Moreno ran as a progressive.
Wolf in sheep's
He ran as a
clothing.
progressive, and then he literally did a whole 180, turned around and betrayed everybody in his party, gave up Julian Assange. The United States paid Ecuador, and it was this whole thing. So, and Peru is a little bit different. Peru, God, this is gonna get, Franco and I were talking. We want to do a deep dive into what a lot of this, because there's a lot of context behind what's happening in Peru. There's a battle going on between the right wing ideology and the socialist ideology, but the fear of communism that came as a result of the Shining Path, as well as the dictatorship of Alberto Fujimori, who was the president of Peru for a long time, up until the 90s, the early 90s. And he was actually later into the 90s. And he was a guy that has been described as a dictator because he remained in power for so long. Keiko Fujimori is his daughter, and he's in prison and under all these crimes because he actually led to the death of so many people. But Keiko Fujimori has a charge on her for corruption, and she's facing up to 30 years in jail, and nobody talks about this. It's hard to even find this information.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are saying that she is actually running in order to pretty much pardon herself and not serve jail time. Unfortunately, some of the last few presidents of Peru have all gone down for corruption. And, you recently with the guy, that was removed by Congress, a lot of people thought that was unfair because Congress in Peru has way too much power. So what this guy coming in, Pablo Castillo, wants to do is he wants to get rid of Congress. Pedro, he wants to get rid of the power of Congress, not necessarily of Congress, but he wants to get rid of the power of Congress. And he wants to get rid of the Constitution that they're using, because the Constitution that they're using is from the Fujimorista side. And Fujimori, I would say the closest in ideology is a very like right-wing globalist neoliberalism. Okay, that's just very much about privatization, capitalist. She was actually advised at one point by Rudy Giuliani, just so you know where her politics lie, which is really freaking funny. But Pedro Castillo, one of the things that he would he wants to really do is expel the world's main drug cartel, as he says. The DEA. He wants to get rid of the DEA.
And the U.S. military, right?
And the U.S. military. So,
throw them out. Just get out. No more bases. Close them up. Get out of here. That's crazy.
So,
that's dangerous.
So basically, there was an interview with one of the members of his party, Guillermo Bernejo, who is part of Pedro Castillo's Peru Libre party. Okay, the PLP, and he told this reporter, Canal N host Mavila Huertas, that the Washington-designed anti-drug policy in Peru has been a total failure. He talked about how the military bases all over in Peru where they have these planes leaving with drugs. And Peru is the second largest exporter of cocaine in the world. And he says, we only have a 3% rate. And he's like, so who's letting these planes leave? He's basically suggesting that the government is working with the cartels. So he said, while the country pumps out cocaine to the world, the major media networks have worked with the country's political class to ignore the issue. He talks about how the media has never talked about this. He said this issue is never seen on television channels. No one talks about it. And the question is why? In Peru, are there not drug cartels? In Peru, production has gone from 250 tons of cocaine to 750 tons of cocaine in less than 6 years. And we only seize an average of 3% annually. Tell me, do we not have cartels? Who is permitting those small planes to pass? Have the media at any point looked over the results of the fight against drug trafficking in this country? Why is this not a campaign issue if we are the second largest producer of cocaine in the world? If here they haven't captured not one small plane, not one more than 20 years. When she asked what the Castillo government would do, he said to improve the efficiency of the armed forces and the police, because he was talking about how corrupt the police were. Bermejo replied that the U.S. corporation is the underlying problem. The U.S. cooperation is the underlying problem. The DEA, specifically he mentions, and the U.S. military officials that come in, and he talks about how they parade around and they influence their own Peruvian government against the people. He says, first remove foreign intervention in Peru, the Congress, all of them, since the dictatorship until now. Allow the entry hundreds of U.S. soldiers and U.S. military advisors annually who walk through all the barracks of the country, showing them techniques, in theory, of repression against the population. And that's agreed to by the president, and it's been all of the presidents without exceptions. All of them have asked that people who represent the most, and he calls the U.S. military the most bloodthirsty and cruel army in the history of humanity, come to Peru after they massacre more than 7 million people in the Middle East. We attend them. We let them enter our home and we put them in our barracks. I think that the correct translation for that, by barracks, they mean by in our government spaces, in our government house. Yeah. And she said, would you expel the DEA? And he said, of course, the DEA is the main drug cartel in the world, and any serious analyst of drug trafficking will tell you. Wow. And so this is of course, the issue here, and it's crazy to me that somebody would say that, right? Like this is the representative for the party. So that's what their platform is. They want to get rid of the U.S. interventionism, and that's the interview that I just read. Basically says the same thing. Yeah.
¿Cuál es el vínculo entre el desarrollo del narcotráfico y las Fuerzas Armadas?
Si en el Perú producimos en menos de 6 años, se ha pasado de 250 toneladas de cocaína a 750 toneladas de cocaína y solamente incautamos promedio anual 3%, dime tú, y no tenemos carteles, ¿quién está dejando pasar esas avionetas? Te pregunto y le pregunto a los amigos de la
¿Está diciendo que las Fuerzas Armadas están permitiendo que
hay
salgan las
una
avionetas
política
con droga?
equivocada? Hay una política equivocada en la lucha contra el narcotráfico y existen malos elementos, desde luego, en las fuerzas policiales y las fuerzas armadas.
Y esos malos elementos para usted desacreditan a toda la Fuerza Armada, porque le recuerdo que la policía tiene una dirección nacional antidrogas. Básicamente el trabajo de la erradicación.
¿Y alguna vez se han puesto los medios de comunicación a revisar los resultados de la lucha contra el narcotráfico en este país? Porque no es un tema de campaña, por ejemplo, si somos los segundos productores de cocaína en el mundo. Si aquí no se capturó ni una avioneta, Mávila, ni una.
¿Qué haría un gobierno del señor Castillo para mejorar la eficiencia de las Fuerzas Armadas y de la Policía Nacional?
Primero, quitar la injerencia extranjera en el Perú. Nosotros, y acá tampoco es un tema de debate, ¿no? El Congreso de la República, todos, ¿eh? Desde la dictadura hasta aquí, permiten el ingreso anual de cientos de militares norteamericanos y asesores militares norteamerinos que se pasean por todos los cuarteles de la patria, enseñándoles luchas, en teoría, ¿no es cierto?, de represión contra la población. Y eso lo firma el Congreso de la República y lo piden todos los presidentes. Acá no, nadie se salva. Acá Ollanta, PPK, Toledo, Fujimori, todos han firmado para que ese tipo de personajes que representan al ejército más sanguinario y cruel de la historia de la humanidad, que viene masacrando en el Medio Oriente a más de 7 millones de personas. Nosotros los atendemos, los hacemos entrar a nuestra casa y los metemos a nuestros cuarteles.
¿Expulsaría a la DEA, la cooperación internacional?
Por supuesto, pero la DEA es el principal cartel de la droga en el mundo y cualquier analista serio del tema del narcotráfico te lo va a decir.
And he says, any serious person that's going to discuss this that's going to discuss actual drug trafficking will tell you the DEA is heavily involved. And we know this as Americans. We know that the DEA does this, right? So this presents a danger to the United States if you're looking at this, politically.
They made a Netflix show about it, fam.
Yeah. Well, I haven't seen that. I guess
really?
I should.
Well, it's Narcos.
I didn't see Narcos. And I thought Narcos was about Colombian cartels.
Yeah, but so Colombia's number 1.
Yeah.
And we're number 2.
Peru's right there.
Okay. Let me ask you guys a question. You say there's no cartels in Peru, right? So it's mostly...
I haven't done any research, so I don't know.
Yeah. But I have never heard of it.
There isn't, Johnny.
But so it's the government and the military working along the American DEA together
that's what he's saying.
If, in fact, they remove the American military from this situation, they remove the DEA, they get the foreign intervention out, right? Won't that open the door for cartels to come over and take over the drug trade that's there right now?
But
isn't there that possibility for that?
There's that possibility, but you have to understand that the DEA is a cartel.
Oh, no. I know that they are a cartel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the cartels basically exist with the DEA. Like the DEA has their hands on everything that's going on in Colombia.
Absolutely.
This is why they do this.
Shit.
And so I think what would happen is the U.S. would say no and would push a coup in Peru. Now, so I want to go over who this guy is, because that was his representative. One of the criticisms of Castillo so far has been that he hasn't done enough interviews himself. So there's that. But this is Pedro Castillo, a thread. For those of you who aren't really familiar, and that's like the vast majority of people, because I didn't even know who this guy was.
It was one before this, Johnny.
Yeah, it's this one, the thread. That, nope.
No, it's Dre Olea. Here. The very first one.
That one.
There it is. He's there.
Okay, so Castillo was born in Tacabamba, the Cajamarca, the region with the largest gold mine in South America, yet one of the poorest regions in Peru.
Figure that out.
So during the conflict, and this is key here, because the mainstream media and the right-wing candidate are saying the opposite. During the internal conflict of Peru, Shining Path versus the Peruvian government, Castillo in his youth worked as a patrolman to defend against the Shining Path. They were basically like little mini militias that would defend against the Shining Path. Afterwards, he would go on to get a BA and then a master's in educational psychology and became a primary school teacher. He is a teacher. His wife's a teacher as well. Castillo's first attempt at a career in politics was in 2002 when he unsuccessfully ran for mayor of Anguilla with Alejandro Toledo, the former president of Peru's possible party. That party was not as left as the one he is currently in. Alejandro Toledo was not as left as he seemed. Castillo was also a teachers union leader. He led a strike in 2017 in Peru. The strike spread to the point where President Kuczynski became a mediator. Not all leaders were invited to the discussion with the president, including Castillo, and the strike got worse. On August 24th of 2017, the government made a decree that the benefits discussed in the negotiations would be official. They issued a warning that if teachers did not return to work, the Ministry of Education would hire new teachers. Castillo suspended the strike temporarily. He was later nominated by the Libre Peru Party as their 2021 candidate for president. His ticket includes Dina Boluarte, an attorney, and Vladimir Cerrón, who was disqualified by the National Jury of Elections for a prison sentence for corruption in 2019. So that guy's gone. Their platform, of course, is very leftist, actually, when it comes to this particular issue. It wants to fund at least 10% of Peru's GDP into education and health, form a constituent assembly to rewrite the constitution, like I said, as well as have a strong anti-imperialist stances. Pedro Castillo has also expressed opposition against gay marriage and abortion. This is something that people aren't talking about, that he is not there when it comes to social justice issues. Okay. And the thing is, in Peru and in countries in Latin America, they are socially conservative by comparison. There's a lot of Catholicism. There's a lot of that influence them. They're still very backwards on those issues in terms of what we view it as, right? In terms of what we view it as. But when it comes to like movements against, El Pueblo Unido, that kind of thing, they're actually far more ahead. They're able to unionize their people. They're able to get them out in the streets. So he shocked the world, of course, because he came into first place in the first round of voting. So this is, again, the first round. The final election is El 28 de Julio, which is July 28th, which is the day of independence for Peru. And Castillo faces Keiko Fujimori. The odds seem to be turning in his favor. She is despised because of her, she has excused all her father's war crimes, and she's also corrupt herself.
When is the election? Do you know the date? Or?
Yeah, 28 of July.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So the whole background to the Shining Path fam and Fujimori and all that. Because there's some, maybe a short summary of that.
Basically, Franco and I are going to go into it, but
basically Shining Path was like a super leftist group, but they did kill a lot of people, right?
Yeah, so Shining Path was actually initially they described themselves as Marxist-Leninist, with the teachings, of course, of Marx and Lenin, and they started going the route of Mao. And if you know anything about Mao was far more authoritarian and more, I would say he committed some things that would be considered as criminal, right? He was very much about like what they did was they took this idea of the dictatorship of the proletariat, literally, and they started blowing up government buildings, the Shining Path. And this is something that is undeniable. My family lived through this 100%. Like, this is what you know. Yeah. Specifically, they attacked Peru's economic sector, the banks. They were anti-capitalist, but they began operating like a terrorist group. And right now, they are considered a terrorist group by the vast majority of the West. And what I'm going to talk about when I do this dive with Franco is that it wasn't just them. It was the CIA that was involved. It was sanctions. It was economic austerity measures that were placed on Peru. But that they committed crimes is true. They led to the death of so many people. Yeah. Simultaneously, the other part of it was the election of Fujimori. That is why he got elected. The complete opposite got elected, which usually happens. If you see a failure in something, it usually happens. A lot of the leftist parties of the time didn't consider Shining Path to be the ideal left they actually started attacking other leftists and going against them. And so most leftists now in Peru move themselves away from that, right? The problem with Pedro Castillo is his party is one of the ones that gave birth to that group. So they're constantly tying him to it, even though he has denounced them, and he has even criticized Nicolás Maduro in Venezuela. Yeah. So there is this whole thing, like, so many Peruvians, especially the ones who have immigrated here, absolutely want nothing to do with anything remotely communism. They fear it's going to turn into what the Shining Path was. Yeah. So it is a big deal because that they're very in a tough situation because a lot of them don't want to vote for Keiko Fujimori because of the dictatorship with her father, but they also don't want to vote for a candidate that is left because they think that's going to be Venezuela. And that's the trope that the Keiko's using. Yeah. They're going to turn this into Bolivia. They're going to turn this into Venezuela. The Venezuelans live in Peru. A lot of them have come into Peru, actually taken jobs from a lot of the indigenous and working class population because they get paid less. Right. And so then it's the same thing here that you have with, the immigrants are taking my jobs, except that they actually are taking jobs because a lot of the jobs are of the, like what do they do, Johnny? When we were there, they were, selling things in the street. They work in stores. They do like the low income work. And so people are kind of turning into this whole like, well, Maduro needs to fix his own crap before he brings his people here. And that's what always tends to happen. And it's kind of complicated because there is an element of where that is happening. And you can't deny that Venezuelans are flocking into other countries and seeking help. Yeah, but what people don't know is why.
Yeah. Well, I mean, also, too, I think we should also kind of touch on this whole situation, what your family had to go through and whatnot. And what a lot of the global South had to go through is like, but, these communists and these groups like the Shining Path and stuff, they got really crazy. They got like terrorists.
Really militant.
But they were fighting against Western imperialism.
Right.
Right. And people have to factor that into the whole situation. When you have the boot on the neck, people talk about, what's his name? But not so much Castro, but help. Who's our boy out?
Which one? Which country?
In Cuba.
It's not Castro?
Not Castro. Who fought Castro?
You're talking about Batista.
Che Guevara. Okay. Che Guevara killed young people and young men and whatnot and stuff. I mean, when you have American imperialism and you're fighting it back, and when Castro was fighting against Batista and stuff like that, things are going to get hairy. Things are going to get dirty. There's going to be war. There's going to be bloodshed. When you have Western imperialism that has so much funding and so much backing behind it and stuff, and they're buying off people left and right, the only way to fight that back, you're not going to win with just completely peace sometimes. And especially the history is going to show that. Right. How many people talk shit about Che Guevara for what he had to do? And we kind of question, like, he got a little crazy, got a little militant with the way he killed people. But look what Western imperialism has done. Yeah. And to fight that back, you're not just going to throw roses at their feet. They're going to go away, fam.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to get them out of there. So,
that's where the left differs, right? Yeah. Because there are elements of the left that are like, we're going to have to fight this bloody war and we're going to have to take, like, literally, they would be all down for that now. Like, but the vast majority of people are still trying to achieve it peacefully, because what happens when you resort to violence is they'll turn everybody against you. And then that's the problem. That's the situation that we have found ourselves throughout the ages, is anything against the state is going to be considered violent. So when you're protesting, they can say that's violent because that's anything against the state. And that's everything that is happening, like, against what the status quo is. And unfortunately, the Shining Path took a turn that I think they didn't have to turn to. I don't think it was necessary to actually kill people. They actually had, groups where they would actually kill people. Lived in terror.
There were like car bombings.
Yeah, like car bombings.
They would kill anybody that was a police officer, I think.
Police officers and bankers is what they attacked. Yeah. And so that, that's one of the main reasons why I'm here in this country. And it's kind of crazy to me, because when I thought about the Shining Path, what I thought was that they were terrorists. I didn't know they were Marxist-Leninists until I was much older. And so that is why there's such a just backlash against anything remotely leftist in Peru, and why they haven't had leftists at all in forever. So there was another candidate, Veronica Mendoza, who ran last time 4 years ago and 5 years ago, excuse me. And she, because Peru does every 5 years, and she actually was popular around the time they were comparing her to Bernie Sanders. They were saying, you know, all of this stuff. She is less leftist when it comes to the you know, like the union stuff, the worker stuff. But when it comes to social progressive issues, she is more left, accepting, pro-LGBT, pro, you know, women's issues, etc. What people are saying is if he wants to win in the second round, he's going to have to get her support because she's still in it. I mean, she
still has a lot of influence.
She still has influence. And so they need to basically, the left needs to come together because they're getting a lot of the same smears. So
it just reminds me of the time when I went and I went to the Cubans for Bernie rally and seeing the kids in the street with the signs, Bernie Sanders, and their parents driving the cars by, cursing at them, just literally, you know what I'm saying, stuff like that. But that's the stigma that's placed on top of, like, when it comes to the global South. You know, I've never been down there, but obviously, you know, you talk about it all the time, and we talk about it all the time, the way the stigma that, you know, communism and socialism is evil and stuff like that. And I'm never going to okay or condone violence in any way, shape, or form. But when you think about the Western imperialists that have been in charge for, you know, decades and decades and decades, how many thousands or hundreds of thousands of millions of people have they killed and stuff? And they'll do it silently too as well. You know, I can understand, well, of course they're going to target bankers and police officers because police are going to enforce the laws that the bankers collect with austerity. How many people die every year to starvation? More than anything in the world. The homelessness. Those are really the killers that we don't even talk about. And those are imposed by a small set, a small group of people who are imposing their will on all these other people. So when drastic measures come into play in these situations, we can't let that stigma stick with it forever.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Socialism and communism is really about working rights.
It's supposed to be.
It's most about labor.
You sound like a radical leftist right now.
Well, it's mostly about labor, right?
No, I know. But that situation is extremely complex because of what happened. So, like I said, Franco and I are going to do a deep dive into it because it is extremely important. And I have friends who have, you know, my friend Ernesto, he was like telling me all about the CIA's involvement in that as well. They push people to do this. They want this to happen in order to destroy.
So that destroyed
everything that was remotely leftist in Peru and brought in all these austerity measures of capitalism that have ruled the country, neoliberalism, and since for decades now. And so that's the result of what happened. And I have, you know, it's a topic for Peruvians because it's like, Franco, you know, our parents despise anything to do with that. And so when we talk about it, we want to talk about it with all the facts and everything, because we can't just dismiss what happened, but also we have to take into context the Western Empire. To just wrap up this section, says our comrade Misty is here. Evo Morales said that Pedro Castillo's successful proposals in Peru are the same as those that the movement towards socialism won with in Bolivia. He has backed off a little bit from Chavez and from Maduro. So Evo Morales is more of a peaceful guy. He's less, you know what I mean? Like Maduro and Chavez were more like direct against the empire. Evo has been all about peace. And that's the thing about Bolivia that I think, you know, Peru could emulate. They have a lot of the same indigenous culture, indigenous regions, the Quechua language and all of that. Did we want to play this? No? Okay.
You know, I got to tell you something. I was surprised that, like, after the way Evo was so peaceful when the coup happened over there and stuff, I'm surprised the indigenous people just didn't rise up and go crazy, because they could have and whatnot. And as far as the anti-LGBT thing and we talked about that, he's just trying to help you be a better Catholic.
Yeah, I mean, it's just something that
it's going to take a while.
It's going to take a little bit of time.
Take some time.
And, you know, I've talked about Keiko Fujimori. Johnny, I'll just say a couple of things about you guys can, Johnny, you can play the video and you can mute it, so I'll describe it. Oh no, her video, you can just play it,
que había con referencia a la opinión del señor Evo Morales del día de hoy.
So,
pero no solamente ha sido del día de hoy.
She's giving her opinion on Evo Morales.
Periodista, hemos visto que el día de la elección,
we have seen
también
that the day of the election,
se sentía ganador, que había perdido en Ecuador y que había ganado en el Perú.
Evo Morales said that he lost. Evo Morales made a statement saying he lost in Ecuador and he won in Peru.
Yo le quiero decir bien claramente.
I want to tell him very clearly.
Evo Morales.
I want to tell Evo Morales very clearly.
Usted no se meta en mi país.
You stay out of my country.
No se meta en el Perú.
Don't get involved in Peru.
Fuera del Perú.
Get out of Peru.
Nosotros los peruanos no
we
vamos
Peruvians,
a aceptar
we're not going to accept
el socialismo del siglo XXI.
Socialism of the 21st century.
Decimos fuera al comunismo.
We say out with communism.
Fuera Maduro.
Out with Maduro.
Fuera a Lula. Y
out with Lula.
tipo de ideologías que lo que busca
and that type of ideology, what they seek
destruir, generar división y traer pobreza
is to destroy, generate division, and bring in poverty.
País. Con referencia.
Yep.
All right.
So she made her statement against Evo Morales, and Evo Morales, of course, made his own statement, right? Mm-hmm. Are we over here?
We have Misty with us.
I know, but I don't know. It's not in the. Can you?
Which one?
Yeah, Johnny.
This here?
Yeah.
So Evo made a tweet and it says, "We salute and express respect and admiration to Pedro Castillo from Peru, who has a program similar to ours, peaceful, democratic, and cultural revolution, defending natural resources and promoting a constituent assembly for the benefit of the people so that there is social justice." And there's a picture of Evo and Castillo.
Yeah. Yep. And I just want to really quickly just surmise, that Castillo has criticized Maduro because Venezuelans have looked to Peru and have flocked to Peru and are taking jobs from the working class. He's inexperienced beside his role as a striker. These are and a teacher, some of the criticisms. He should make progressive concessions to unite with the other leftists to get their support and the youth support, because the youth is obviously different.
More radical, right?
His party seems to be more radical than he is. That's the position I got. They focus on imperialism more than he does, so all his members talk more about it. He said he's for free speech in that interview of the video that we aren't going to watch because it's weird, but he says without it we have very little else. Overall, he's not the best candidate I have seen ever in the global south, but as a whole would allow leftism, abolish Fujimori's constitution, reduce powers of Congress, and kick out the Western Empire. I don't put it past the U.S. to interfere, obviously, because this is going to be a contentious election because people hate Kiko, but there's also a lot of fear against anything leftist because of Shining Path. So, and like I said, Kiko is awful, and yeah.
Listen, you're going to see a lot of pushback, right, when this comes to play. If Peru is the number 2 exporter of cocaine in the world behind Colombia, the U.S. and the DEA and the military is not going to take that line down.
No, of course not.
So here until July, until the election, look for all the dirty tricks to come out. Watch out for people to be gunned down in the streets and stuff like that. So it's going to be a scary ride, but this looks like to be a serious, in my mind, I don't know, fam, you guys would know better than me, this looks like to be a serious step in a great direction over here.
I think
we might not get everything.
Yeah.
But we get a lot with this.
I agree.
This is a fight for the people, for the 99%, for the poor.
Yeah.
That's what we're most concerned with.
We didn't show, but he lives in a very, very, very working class home. I mean, as working class as it gets. His wife is a teacher. They live with their 3 kids. He's like a farmer. He has his little farm. He's got a crew of guys that protect him. No security. It's just 16 guys wearing ponchos protecting him. The reporter asked him, "Why aren't you wearing masks?" He says they believe in natural medicine, and that this is different here. You don't get that sort of sickness. I don't know. He literally said, he brushed off the mask thing there. Yeah. They were chewing coca, which is, of course, the plant. They chew it for energy. They chew it it helps with any digestion. That's a very indigenous, custom over there. He's 51 years old. And yeah, I mean, he's pretty much like a rancho guy, very, very working class, very similar to how Evo Morales was, just very, that kind of guy. But he is educated, unlike, Hugo Chavez was a bus driver. This guy has degrees. He taught at schools, and I'm not saying that is like the end or all or whatever, but it does give people more confidence when somebody has some sort of a degree, especially in countries like Peru where people still look at those things as prestige and stuff. So
I don't know, the ivermectin in Peru, I heard, right?
yeah so can't even say that word without getting banned.
My Lord.
Fams, We have our comrade here who has been patiently waiting. We had a late start because of the Rokfin situation. So, did you have any?
Just really quick before we get to our fam friend, I just want to mention 2 people real quick as soon as I get it up, because Cultist Demon is hanging on out. Embald Fateh, as a Pan-African, I'm not the biggest fan of BLM. Caleb Malpin gives praise to the Nation of Islam. They connect foreign policy to police violence. They were one of the loudest voices in Libya, just asking how come you never talk about them? How come we never talk about who?
I don't know who you're talking about.
Pan-African?
Didn't we have someone on to talk about the Horn of Africa recently? I don't know. We haven't talked about Mozambique yet because there's a lot of shit going on. But we're going to be talking more about Africa and the water wars because we've talked about the water wars in Africa.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's just crazy. Jindo, thank you so much for the Super Ray Cultist Demon. Probably an oversimplification of the situation in Peru. No offense. And mischaracterization of Mao. The Shining Path was probably infiltrated by the CIA and Peruvian intelligence to make the left look bad. It's the CIA's specialty to discredit the left.
I'm from Peru. I lived through it. I think I know sufficiently enough. I did say that the CIA has influenced. There's a lot of the CIA involvement in the Shining Path, but also you have to take into consideration that what people live through there. You're not going to get rid of that. Like you're not going to get rid of people who were afraid of getting their car blown up. And that's the problem too. And then this is what I try to be very careful of when we talk about other countries from an American perspective. You can't just dismiss people's experience, right? Like there's a reason why people feel the way they do because they lived through it. We didn't. Yeah. We have, that's one of the criticisms that the left gets here. It's like, oh, we think we know better, even the leftists and you guys in your country. And that's just not the case. That's just not, it's definitely not the case, especially in this case, because literally like this is something that's really close to me. Yeah. And like you can't just dismiss what people went through. Yes, the CIA was involved, 100%. And that's like what we're going to break down too with Franco when that happens. But this is something like, like our parents are in any remote situation of talking about the Shining Path in a positive way or dismissing what they did you have to be careful too, because there was a lot of terror during that time. But
here's the thing too as well. Everybody I speak to in the global south who was there and whatnot, I was even speaking to somebody about AMLO and stuff like that. They're like, I know what's going on in my country. I'm like, yeah, but we know what's going on here and who's pulling the strings and the intervention we do. So we understand that better than anybody. So yes, it has to be this kind of like explaining, teaching, whatnot. Because remember, back in the days when the Shining Path was going on, you best believe that the CIA and the mainstream media was putting out this kind of image of what they are and not talking about who they were fighting and combating against. Yeah. I'm sure that's there because that's what happens. That's in the CIA's playbook, regime change playbook. So we understand who's pulling the strings from this end. So
people there don't know.
They don't
a lot
understand.
Of people don't.
They don't
so
understand.
You can't just be arrogant and dismissive.
They don't know
what they don't know either.
Listen, I was talking to my friend the other day from who was in Belarus and everything like that, and he was talking about a lot of stuff about Putin and whatnot. He didn't understand the CIA's involvement in what we do to kind of cause these situations. So
agreed.
We read these super chats. Let's get to our person over here. Who we got over
Misty.
here? Misty Mist is in the house.
How
Hi, you doing?
Thanks for having me. I would like to say that it's very presumptuous of you to say that I was patiently waiting because I'm just kidding.
No, I know. I know how you are, Misty. Come on. Yeah. That's what I love about you. You're just like, you're just there. You're just like waiting to.
I just am who I am. People ask me all the time, exactly. Are you the same in real life as you are on Twitter? Yes, I absolutely am.
I am the same way, and it's funny. People have told me that, like, oh wow, you're like the same person, because a lot of people aren't, and I didn't know that was a thing. Like,
that's
I don't
weird to me.
I know.
It's weird.
I don't know how you can pretend to be some. I mean, I guess you can. I don't know. It's weird.
Well, some people are really awkward in person, and they're not awkward on Twitter. Yeah. So I guess that's
kind of me. That's kind of me. I'm awkward in real life, but I'm like more like I don't know.
You're pretty
upfront, I don't know. Yeah. Whatever. Fuck it. Who cares?
Well, I just want to say that.
Oh, and I'm repping. Listen, I'm repping.
Hey! You got the fuck censorship shirt on too as well.
Censorship.
But I do want to say this
much. Always annoys me, but fuck it.
Love the shirt, looks good. But I do want to say this too as well, because I think a lot of times you and Fee can get this kind of reputation that you're very harsh, you're savage, and go after and stuff like that. But at the same time, I think that's only when somebody crosses the shit line. And before they cross that shit line, I really want to tip my hat off to you, Misty, because I think you're awesome at explaining stuff, being very understanding, being very compassionate, and you're really not condescending to people when you're explaining what is going on. Yeah. So people have the opportunity to learn without being demeaned or having shit thrown in their face. But when they cross the shit line, for both of you ladies, it's over. Here comes...
Well, listen, anybody that comes at me in an honest way, I can deal with that. If you come at me from a place of truth and honesty, and you really and truly believe the things that you're saying, I can talk to just about anybody who comes at me. It's when you are disingenuous and you have no intention of listening or having a conversation in any real good faith way. I don't have time for that, and I'll destroy you.
Yeah. Well, I was there before.
I'll come for you.
You told somebody, get a life, get a hobby, buy a plant. That's when you said buy a plant, I fell off the seat. And,
but y'all, there are people who their Twitter timeline is 85% of them tweeting about my tweets. Get a plant.
Yeah. No, seriously, Misty, 100%. They wake up every morning and they just clip out our videos, or they do something stupid where they're just, how sad is your life that you have to focus on somebody else's? It's like,
I'm legitimately embarrassed for these people. Yeah. You really need a hobby.
Listen. The GI isn't here to protect themselves. Leave them be, okay? If they had a chance to voice their own opinion.
They don't get to be here to defend themselves. They've been smearing these years from behind blocks. Fuck them.
Exactly.
Yeah, they're terrible.
I've seen that person in real life too. It's in my head. I see that person. I'm like, oh my God, son of a bitch and stuff. Like that, so.
Well, Misty, I want to, we're going to talk about a couple things. I want to ask you about your show, but first I wanted to get your opinion, bring you in as somebody that is going to discuss some of these things, because this section that we're about to discuss is really scary. It's a lot of the things we've been warning about. You're in your fight for Julian Assange and your fight for free speech. We're also talking about the police state that we live in, not just the little minion police, but the national security state, the intelligence agencies, the military industrial complex, the whole apparatus. And the Postal Service, of course, I didn't even know this, is apparently running these covert operations program that is monitoring your social media posts. And boy, if they're monitoring your posts, I don't know. And so, this is a program nobody knew about, and it's called ICOP. What a wonderful name.
Perfect.
Internet Covert Operations Program. And it wasn't made public. Involves having analysts go through social media sites to look for what is described as inflammatory postings and then sharing the information across government agencies. It's crazy.
This is
what do you
height
think
of craziness. The fucking Postal Service.
I didn't even know they had something capable of doing these things.
I can't even get my mail on time, fam.
Because they're busy looking at
Parler.
Parler.
To search through my posts? What is that? If you have time to search through my posts, you can get me my packages on time. It's really not asking too much. This is nuts. I love the fact that it's called ICOP. This is what I have been yelling about for years. When we fight for Julian Assange and we fight for free speech and press freedom, you're right, Fee. It's not just about Julian Assange or free press or whatever. It is this bigger picture. It is the national security state and the surveillance state, and it's all intertwined and it all works together, and it's all here to control. They want to be able to control everything that you see, hear, read, think, tweet about. And this is part of it. And this is really, when I saw this today, I honestly thought that it was an Onion article. The Postal Service. What?
Yeah.
No, this is real. It's real. It's a real thing. I don't even know what to say, you guys. This is crazy business.
And what they have been doing is going through the internet and looking also at protests. So it says locations and times have been identified for protests, which are distributed online across multiple social media platforms, to include right-wing leaning Parler and Telegram accounts. So that's part of it. But of course, this always comes in affects the left, as we all know.
Yeah.
If you're an anarchist or whatever, or a leftist radical, they're putting you in the same category. It doesn't matter. That's the whole point, and they're going to try to find violence in any single rally. And again, January 6th was going to be used for this specific reason. It's going to be used to punish everybody else. And they have zero proof of the legitimacy of any of these claims that they're making. There's no, there's no like verification. They're just going on what they are seeing at the moment and any potential alarm. So it's crazy to me that this is happening. It's a violation of our civil liberties. It's a violation of
I don't know if you know this, but PASA's a civil liberties guy.
Did you know that?
No, I wasn't aware.
Misty knows. Oh my Lord. The funny thing is too, is like they seem like it is all for show here. It's complete lip service on one side. When you see like, okay, people are going to justify this. The Postal Service is going after people on Parler. They're going after domestic terrorism. And then you got Ron DeSantis who bites back and he does stuff to go after people's civil liberties for people on the left. And it appears like it's just like they're going back and forth. Everything's very tribal. But behind the scenes, it's the security state going, we're going to just sew up everything on every side of every ideology and have everybody under our control.
Well, and listen, if you want to put your tinfoil hat on for a minute, how do we know that this whole story about ICOP isn't something that is just meant to further defame the Postal Service so that they can privatize it? I mean, you have to think about it in that way too. I'm not saying that that's what they're doing, but you need to at least ask those questions because these people will do anything to get their agenda going. And Postal, you're absolutely right. We have to stop pretending like they're on two different teams working for two different agendas. They're working hand in hand constantly against the people. And the quicker we realize that and the quicker we start reacting as if that is reality, because it is, the better off we're going to be.
Yeah.
And one of the like other civil liberty experts and weighed in and said like we don't get why the government is going to go to the Postal Service and actually to examine like the internet for security issues. It's just weird. Yeah. It's just weird. It doesn't make any sense. It's like they do your mail. Why are you going to the Postal Service? It's actually tinfoil hat on, and like it is really strange that's happening. It is strange.
They have the NSA. They don't need the Postal Service.
Right.
NSA has access to literally everything you do. So why? Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like if you want to put your tinfoil hat on for a little bit, and I don't think it's very tinfoil hat. I think that's a rational question to ask. But is this legit, or are they just trying to privatize the Postal Service?
They're also trying to further sow division because everybody a lot of conservatives, as we know, always hate the Postal Service. They always complain about it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, oh my God, the post office, they can't even do anything right. And the left is always like, oh, we got to save them. What's going on? I mean, we had this battle right now when they were talking about the mail-in things with DeJoy and the whole situation. You know, we had even Debbie Wasserman Schultz showing up to a post office and they wouldn't let her in and stuff. So I think it's to further sow division too as well by naming the post office. So I don't know.
Yeah. I think that we have to ask all those questions. I mean, this is a story that just came out, and so we're really in the infancy of figuring it out and getting all the information. But I think it's definitely something we need to pay attention to and be open to all aspects of what it could mean or what it is being, what the story is there for, if it's a legitimate story or if it's being used as, narrative management, as a means to an end. So. Yeah, it's just crazy though. It's a crazy story.
It is. And if you guys haven't read that article, I encourage you to read it. It's crazy. It's a lot of information. And one of the other things that we wanted to talk to you about is like this whole Orwellian state that we're living in, right? We were talking to a friend the other day who we just met. She was like, we're living in Orwell right now. Like an artist, we're living in Orwell. Well, this is Brave New World in Orwell, because what's happening is they're trying to convince you that complacency and not questioning is the right thing to do. All the commercials you hear about the vaccine, everything that you hear about, right? Like, is you like, oh, do this, do it for the benefit of everybody else. And it's like, in theory, that thought process is good. You're like, yeah, like I want to be a part of my community. I want to help people out. But what's happening is this manipulation. And Vanessa Beeley brought this video to my attention where these artists are basically starting to do guerrilla art to kind of just throw, like little hints at people who are like asleep, so to speak, and haven't woken up to what's going on around them and the Great Reset and all these things. And I just want to play a little bit of it so you guys can sort of see it, but we're not going to play the whole thing because it's a long video. So just going to play a little.
We are extremely proud of the quality, balanced journalism that CBS 4 News produces.
But dangerous to our democracy.
This is extremely 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 dangerous to our democracy.
It's at the end, what the fourth industrial revolution will lead to is a fusion of our physical, our digital, and our biological identities.
Okay, that's a good stopping point. Yeah.
How do you feel now, Misty?
Yeah. That dude freaks me out every time I see him. He gives me
Klaus?
Yes, he's so creepy. But I love that video. I love that people are doing that. And you're absolutely right. This it's very Franco just got a 12-hour suspension on Twitter for just talking about like medical, like I think it was maybe ivermectin or something. Yeah. But you can't even talk about that. Are you serious? Like, that's crazy. If they're trying to limit the discourse to that degree, you should be terrified by that. And it really doesn't matter what you think of COVID. It doesn't matter if you're terrified of COVID and you think it's real and you want to stay in your house for the next 10 years. It doesn't matter if you think it's a hoax. It doesn't matter. It really does not matter. What matters is how it's being used to manipulate the narrative and to manipulate and to control people, really. And I was talking actually earlier, you mentioned Vanessa Beeley. She hooked me up with Kevork Almassian from Syriana Analysis, and I interviewed him. And we were just talking about this. I'm really, frankly, quite tired of people being mad at anti-maskers or people who are anti-lockdown or whatever. Y'all should spend some time being mad at the system that created such a sense of distrust that you can't believe anything that they tell you. Right. That's the real problem here. So it's not whether you think you should wear masks or not wear masks. What you should be mad at is the fact that you can't trust the media, the government, the pharmaceutical companies to tell you the fucking truth about something like this. That's the problem, not people who are questioning it.
Yeah. Or the fact that every single time there's a crisis, they take part of our civil liberties away and they never give them back.
Right.
What is the next step where we're going from here, and your opinions as far as like where we are today? I mean, we've been through this whole situation together right now. January 6th is come and gone. Biden is in office. All the band is back together when our foreign policy is back to being awful again and stuff. But, I mean, they did give him $16 million, big tech. Where are we going from here now, Misty, in your opinion?
Oh, we're screwed. I hate to be Debbie Downer here, but we're screwed, you guys. Like, we have people who think that we defeated fascism by voting for a fascist. You don't beat fascism by voting for fascism. That doesn't work at all. It's ridiculous. So, yeah, I mean, honestly, we really are in a very bad spot. And I hate to be that depressing. People call me a cynic all the time and say I'm too negative. I'm a realist. That's where we're at. It's Joe Biden is president. Joe Biden is president. Mr. Iraq War, Captain Crime Bill. Like, this guy is president now. Yeah. And you're right. The band's back together. Some of the worst are now back in powers of position. He's appointing people to cabinet positions who have no business being anywhere. They should be in prison. Like, these people should be in jail. It's not looking good for the home team here, kids. And until people start recognizing that it's not red versus blue, it's us versus them, I don't know how anything's ever going to change, because I can't even convince people that you should have conversations with those you disagree with.
Right. Yeah. So yeah. Okay. So about that,
vote for Joe Biden.
About that, Misty, right? Because a lot of people aren't ready to have that conversation. We talked about it with Jimmy Dore a little bit. He came out straight saying, we need to stop with this left-right paradigm. We need to really focus on us, the workers versus the, the predator class, et cetera. And like that is something that I agree with Jimmy on. But there obviously is a left and a right? There obviously is, but that's not the point. Sure. Can you explain to people why, we need to move towards a post-partisan, in your opinion?
Well, we can't have conversations about left-right issues until we deal with the problem, which is the system. And we can't defeat the system dividing ourselves. And so you can hate each other. Fine. I don't care. But we need to come together and figure out a way to deal with the system that is designed to kill us, because it's killing us. People are dying and y'all are fighting over libertarianism versus socialism. I don't give a fuck. We don't have time for that. I'm more worried about the people who are suffering right now because of this system. And we can't do anything. We cannot move forward until we deal with that. And so, and I've been kind of on a rampage about this recently. Fellow white people who like want to wash their hands of dealing with other white people who may be racist, that is the height of privilege. I don't even have words for my level of disgust for that. That's our problem. That is our problem. That is not the responsibility of Black people or Asian people or any person of color to deal with. If you are a white person who has the privilege and the ability to walk into white spaces and have conversations with white people that could change their minds and move them towards being more accepting, that's your job. That's your duty. That's your that's how you ally, fam. That's
you
how
talk
you
to people
ally.
you disagree with. Yeah.
Yes, that's because we can. Because as a white person, I have the ability and the privilege of being able to walk into a white space and have conversations with those people who I don't agree with on some things. But that's my job.
It's discouraged a lot instead of being encouraged.
Yeah, it really is our problem. And I'm tired of white people pretending they're allies to people of color, but then like washing their hands of it. Like, oh, that's not my problem. I'm not talking to racists. And again, I'm not asking you to go to a KKK party. I'm not. There's a whole lot of space between Bernie Sanders and KKK. There are a whole lot of people in here that you could be having conversations with and maybe changing some minds. Yeah. And, you know, you're going to win some, you're going to lose some. There are some people who are stuck in their ways and you're not going to be able to convince them out of it. But it's your job to try. That is your job as a white person in this world. If you wish to make any difference for your comrades of color.
And also, though, like it's funny to me how people like myself, Niko, Glory, we talk. I have no problem going and having a conversation with even a Trump supporter or anybody. I don't care what you are. I'll talk to a libertarian. We had Magnus on. We got so much crap for having Magnus. Like, I know. It's like God. And it's just like, I have zero problem doing that. But yet I have all these Karens calling me and Niko Nazis for having those conversations. And it's like, what do you think should happen? Should we just round up people, put them in an island and forget about them because you think we're all racist? You think all the people that voted for Donald Trump are all Nazis? Seriously?
Yeah.
What's wrong with you?
I don't know if you know this, but ignoring problems makes them go away.
Yeah.
That's how you make things go away. So if they're a racist and you don't want there to be racist, you just ignore them.
Yeah.
And they go away. That's how that works. See? But yeah, you're absolutely right. And yes, if you are a person of color and you feel comfortable having those conversations with people, by all means, I'm not saying you shouldn't and that it's only on white people and only white people. No, of course not. But if you are, and even if you're white and you don't feel like that's something that you can handle, if you can't have a grown-up conversation with somebody that you disagree with, fine, don't do it. But stop shitting on people who are willing to do it.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great point.
And stupid. Yeah. I'm so done with it. It's no, I'm not a Nazi. No, I'm not a fascist enabler. I'm somebody who's surrounded by Trump voters who knows that they're not bad people. They get up, they go to work every day. They just want the best for their family. And they've been propagandized to be mad at the wrong things and the wrong people, period.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
75 million people are not irredeemable racists.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
I know. And you know, when the mainstream media has a big part to play in this and the establishment too as well. And I'm going to bring all this stuff you're mentioning to the white guys meeting because this stuff is great. They're going to love this stuff when I talk to them. But what do you do? What do we do to fight back against the fact that the mainstream media is kind of exposing or lifting up the voices that are very divisive with people of color, like the Bakari sellers, like the Anthony Rogers Wrights, where no matter what you do, you know what I'm saying, like that because you are white, that you have to shut your mouth, sit back, and not say anything when you want to be involved in a part of the conversation. But, you know, we obviously do what we have to do by elevating, like, Fred Hampton leftists. You know, we are partners with Niko, you know what I'm saying, who's willing to get in there and whatnot and stuff like that. What do we do to combat the fact that they will elevate the mainstream media voices that are very divisive, like those Bakari sellers? And I remember the battles you had with Anthony Rogers Wright. It was like, wow, ridiculous. How do we beat that narrative back then?
Well, that is the fight right there. And that's why I am such a that's why I'm so obsessed and focused on free speech and press freedom, because narrative control and narrative management is 100% the front line. That is it, because that's what they use to manipulate and control right now. I mean, we are the most propagandized country on earth, and that is legitimately, that affects everything else. And so, you know, if you want to be able to have these conversations or talk about these issues in any real substantive way, we're going to have to fight back against the narrative control that's going on and against the propaganda. And it is extremely pervasive, and they are very good at what they do. So it's not going to be easy, but what you guys do on Convo Couch, that's part of it. What Niko does on his show, that's part of it. And MCSC Network and all of us joining together and, you know, having each other's backs, that's part of it. Like, we really do have to support independent media. I say it all the time. I'm not kidding. Please. It doesn't even mean that you have to become like a Patreon or whatever. If you are not financially capable of supporting somebody's channel, that's fine. Share their work.
There you go.
You know, make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you tell other people to subscribe. Make sure you post their clips. Make sure, however you can get the message out, that's hugely important. That really is, you know, the crux of all other battles that we face. So, I mean, and it's going to be hard. There is no easy here. This is not going to be easy. We're up against some of the most powerful, psychopathic people on planet Earth, and they will stop at nothing. So it really is going to take, you know, unity, real solidarity, real sticking together, and understanding that we're not always going to agree, but it is us against them, period.
Yeah, 100%. And one of the things that it has come to my attention as being one of the, I see kind of like the neo-progressive left kind of coming, is that everything is now anti-Semitic when you start criticizing Israel, right? And there's this thing that happened recently that I wanted to point out, Misty, and get your opinion on it, because it's right along the lines of Orwellian and it's just crazy. So this a young woman had posted that she was kicked out of her Google account, her Google Drives. Google disabled her account, that she made her folder with educational content on Palestine, and the Drive folder she had linked to her Twitter bio, and they disabled the account. And it's that's terrible. That's the overstepping of what Google should be doing, etc. But then also that same day, what happens? That Israel picked Google, Amazon for massive official cloud. The data will remain here. So Google is going to build a data center in Israel for its cloud services. So this is just goes how far Israel has, not just in big tech and everything, but in our country too, the money that we give to Israel to kill, to basically exterminate Palestinians like they're doing, to bomb Syrians like they just did the other day, and nobody talks about that. And it's just like a daily occurrence. We can't talk about Israel in a negative way. I can't even say the word elites or anything because, that is a right-wing talking point, that da-da-da-da-da. And so it's like, oh my God, this just gets me crazy, because it's like, I'm not saying Jewish people, I'm talking about the government of Israel, the state of Israel, what they're doing.
And fuck Israel. I'll say it. Fuck Israel. They're an apartheid, brutal regime that is genociding Palestinians. And there's no excuse for defending the government of Israel and its actions ever. I don't care what you say. You want to call me anti-Semitic? That's fine. I really am not bothered, because what they're doing is unbelievably horrific. It's not defensible in any way, shape, or form. And now we have Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez wanting to go over there and get their tech for her green.
Yeah. We did a story on that.
That's already a corporate giveaway. That it's so stupid. So yeah, Israel owns our government. They have complete control. You're not allowed to step out of line. You can't criticize. I mean, look what they did to Bernie Sanders for just saying that Palestinians have a right to human rights.
He's a self-hating Jew. That's what they call them.
Yeah,
and Jeremy Corbyn.
They're calling the Jewish guy anti-Semitic. That's some shit right there. That's some. I mean, that's some stuff.
Yeah.
But that's what they do. That's their go-to, because it's effective. Because listen, Israel's very good at propaganda. I mean, they are incredibly gifted at putting out disinformation and making it very believable. And that's just where we are right now. And that's why I am so willing to say things like "fuck Israel," because it needs to be said. We have to change the conversation conversation there. They cannot be allowed to have this much control and power anymore. What they're doing is despicable on so many levels. That's not even a strong enough word. They're slaughtering Palestinians daily. And, you know, it's not even just by shooting them, because they do that too. They're starving them and it's a whole thing. Now, this is genocide. Yeah. You're watching a genocide, and anybody defending that is not on my team.
Or both siding the issue too. Like just both siding, oh, you know, it's tough. Both sides. No, like one side is genociding the other. I'm so sorry. Yes, like
it's Israel and the IDF and Palestinians and like some kites and rocks.
Yeah.
Really? That's not a fair fight. Are you kidding me? That's a ridiculous notion. And Israel is just taking over their land and executing them, you know, on the regular. And no, there's no both sides there. There is no both sides.
The national security state is, you know, we've been talking about it here today on the show, and, you know, we've talked about everything that's going on. What is the connection with Julian Assange and the national security state and everything that we're talking about, and your guys' affection and love to fight so hard for Julian Assange? What does he mean in all this?
Well, he is the only one who's ever really ever attempted any real pushback or any exposure of the crimes of empire. You know, the dude has broken more stories and exposed more corruption and criminality than maybe all other journalists combined. I mean, dude, Vault 7 alone is a treasure trove of information. So this is a guy who not only revolutionized journalism and made it what it should be, which is straight facts. It is a science. There's no conjecture. There's no opinion. There's no like, you know, panel of talking heads, you know, ranting about their party's talking points. No, this is just source documentation, 100% verifiable, accurate source documentation. Here are the facts. You do with this what you will. And that's the way journalism should be. And so he revolutionized journalism, revolutionized information, and our ability to hold power to account. But he's also done more for exposing the crimes of empire than any other human being on planet Earth. And, you know, a couple weeks ago, people were trying to tell me that my fight for Assange was a fight for a white man.
Yeah.
That white man has exposed more crimes against black and brown people than anybody else.
Yep.
So don't come for me on that. Are you kidding me? This is a guy that everybody should be fighting for. He has done more to expose crimes against you than anybody else. And so it doesn't matter what you think of him. It doesn't matter whatever nonsense propaganda you believe about him. What's happening to him is wrong, period.
Yeah. And like, I love that you said that, because when, you know, I made a tweet about how you made a tweet too, where we were both like, look, this is what we're talking about. What's happening in Minneapolis and you know, and what's happening in Brooklyn Center, Minnesota, and how they were treating these journalists and how they made them get on the ground and photograph their faces and took their pictures of their credentials. I mean, I have been on that side, not that bad, but I have been, you know, like had guns pointed at me, been told, no, you can't go in there, you know, been mistreated by the police. And we have seen other journalists like Josie Huang famously here attacked and arrested. I mean, I was arrested for covering a protest. So I understand what that is, and I understand how bad it is. And I don't for the life of me get how you don't make the connection between the First Amendment, your right to protest, your right to free speech, a journalist's right to film, you know, police arresting or bullying or exerting excessive force on protesters. How do you not see that connection to Julian Assange, who is in jail for exposing U.S. war crimes? Hello? Like,
well, they've done a very good job at conflating the issue and using propaganda to dehumanize him and paint him as like this comic book villain, so that nobody cares what happens to him. They've made it so that people hate him, and so that people are fine for him to be tortured to death because they've been propagandized to think he's a bad person. But I'm here to tell you, it doesn't matter if he's a bad person. Julian Assange, I tweeted about this. Julian Assange could be the worst person on earth, and I would still fight back against what's happening to him, because it's not about him. It is not about Julian Assange. It is about your First Amendment rights. They are being systematically destroyed in broad daylight, and you are cheering it on. That's ridiculous. And it's not just about journalists being attacked at protests. Look at all the anti-protest laws that are popping up all over. There's anti-protest laws in like 34 states right now. Florida just passed one. There are many more on the books. And so, it's about so much more than just Julian Assange. This is a systematic destruction of your First Amendment rights, and everybody should be terrified about that. And it shouldn't matter if it's Julian Assange or whoever. It does not matter. It's so much bigger than that.
I just want to ask you about your show too. You started a new show called Bitch with Comrade Misty. Tell us what that's going to be about, because you have your show Facts on the Ground with Jesse Zerwell. Why did you start a new show, and what's going to be like the thing you do?
Okay, so I am a ranter, and I've always really kind of wanted a space where I can just rant. Like, Facts on the Ground is great. I love doing Facts on the Ground. And there are times when we have people on that we're friends with, and it's a little bit more low key, and we can I can go off a little bit or whatever. But for the most part, we're interviewing people about very specific issues, and it's very kind of formal. And, we're either talking about, Israel, Palestine, or the Kana massacre, or whatever it is. And so there isn't a lot of like space for me to rant a lot. And, it's kind of started really a long time ago with, as you guys know, Fuck Your Faves, which started just as like a joke because I, kind of tear apart all politicians. It doesn't matter if you like them or not. And so it kind of just branched out from that. And it was really kind of like a half-assed joke like a week ago. I was like, yeah, I need to start a show where I just rant. And everybody was like, yes, do that. And I'm like, well, maybe I should. And then I was like, fuck it, I'm just going to do it. So it was like, over a course of like, I don't know, 36 hours, 48 hours, where it all just like came out. And so I honestly don't know, like format wise, I'm winging it. Like I have no idea. I had a guest on this past Wednesday. It's going to be every Wednesday at 7. But I had a guest on this past Wednesday, but then like some of the feedback I got was, hey, you talk too much, maybe no guest. And that's true. I did talk a lot and I felt bad, but that's kind of the point. Like I wanted a space for me to rant, but I also didn't want it to be just about me. But maybe I will just do it solo and just rant and then just interact with the chat. I don't know. I'm winging it. But really, I just wanted a place where it's not formal. We're not talking about anything necessarily in particular. We can just, vent, just get it off our chest, whatever's bothering us, whatever's making us angry that day or that week. Let's just talk about it and vent and bitch about it. It's good. It feels good to get it out. So that's kind of where I was coming from with that. And, most people seem to like it right now. I'm flying by the seat of my pants. I have no idea what I'm doing. So I'll figure it out as I go, but it's a lot of fun. I've only done one, but it was a lot of fun.
I don't know what you got to do, Misty. Get a job, get some friends, buy a plant, do whatever you got to do and stuff like that. I think that would be a good a forum to have Fiorella on too with her fee rants.
Yes.
And just go 2 rants back and forth.
I need.
I mean, you guys are so much alike in some ways. Just go crazy and have some crazy rants. And it is good to get it off your chest when you do it and stuff like that. And a lot of people, what I'm saying, the thing I find great when I listen to fee rants and I listen to you rants and stuff is like, yeah, I feel that way too, and I didn't know how to express myself and say it. But Comrade Misty showed me, hey, asshole over there, buy a plant, do something.
It's true. The Mistyisms or the Mindyisms.
The Mindyisms, as I like to call them.
Mindy Moneybags needs an outlet. Yes. I gotta have an outlet to rant. Mindy Moneybags needs her outlet.
Maybe she can be your alter ego, Mindy Moneybags.
There you go.
Yeah, I have multiple alter egos now, so I'm gonna have to.
You know how Steve has his Sequoia more white. Mindy Moneybags. There we go.
Yeah, somebody should interview Mindy Moneybags. She's a lot of fun.
I love it. Well, where can people find you and plug in your shows? And everybody knows you're on Twitter, but yeah.
I'm on Twitter. Sarcasm Stardust. You can find me there all the time. But yeah, I have Facts on the Ground with Jesse Zerwell. Like I said, we just wrapped an interview earlier today with Kevork Almassian from Syriana Analysis, which is fun because our stalkers don't like him at all.
Oh, I'm sure
they were calling him a Nazi and stuff. And it was, so I'm really excited for them to like lose their shit once that's posted. It's
Who was it with?
Entertaining. The guy from Syriana Analysis. I don't know if you know him, Kevork Almassian. Okay. He came very highly recommended from Vanessa Beeley, and I was like, if you're good with Vanessa Beeley, then you're okay by me. So yeah, we just wrapped that. That'll be going up soon. And then of course I just started Bitch with Comrade Misty. That one's only on YouTube. Facts on the Ground is on YouTube, Odyssey, and Rokfin, which definitely go to Rokfin because fuck YouTube. But yeah, I'm gonna try to get Bitch up on Rokfin at some point once I get it built up some. But yeah, just for now it's on YouTube, and it's live streams Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern.
Wow. Nice. And I love the logo. It's just, I love that logo.
It is so Misty.
Thank my husband.
Yeah.
I love the smirk.
John, you got anything for Misty?
All right. Thank you, Misty, for coming on. We appreciate the discussion. We love having you on. It's been way too long. We've been meaning to have you on. So thank you.
I get it. Everybody's busy. So thank you guys for having me. It's always a good time.
Hey, OH.
I-O. And fucking buy a plant, motherfuckers. Bye, Misty.
Love you, Misty. Take it easy. Well, fam. Hey, look at it. Was a close-up of me there. Misty holds back too much.
Oh, stop.
Misty, she just let it go. She holds back way too much.
Oh, my God.
Just let it go, Misty.
I don't know if Misty and I would, I don't know. We would just be ranting on each other. Like, it would just be one rant after the other, and then after the other.
The world needs that.
I don't know if the world can handle that.
The world needs that. Just some quick super rays before we get to the last topic. Embolt Fateh says, the Nation of Islam. How come you never talk about them? That's who I was talking about. Caleb Malpin knows about them, too. Maybe we should learn about the Nation of Islam and talk
I mean, I only know about them
like
in the context of the of what happened with Malcolm X. Yeah.
The Convo Couch received a tip from JVB. Thank you so much, JVB and Hunter C. Hunter Carranza. Yes, fam. Misty spitting some truth as always.
Yep.
Matt. Thank you so much for the Super Ray contribution. As always, appreciated account. What are the legit arguments against Assange? He ousted U.S. ops. I'm not fully clear. Well, he's working with Putin.
Yeah.
He's Putin's body, and he helped Putin to help destroy the country.
He's a Nazi. That's another one. Also, his what is it, like his interaction with women that was exploited, like when he was supposedly he did something that was thrown out. And if you read a lot of the information on it, Caitlin Johnstone has a really good article on all this Assange smears, and she breaks it down with like receipts, like, oh, this is what happened, this was thrown out, this is what happened. And again, all of that shit doesn't really matter to me. Like what Assange, what if he, like, some people are like, oh, well, he's a libertarian ideology. I don't give a crap what he is. I'm with Misty there. I don't really care about his personal life. I care about the fact that he exposed war crimes, and that's why he's being punished. If you want to punish him for something else and you have the evidence later on, go ahead. Yeah. Guess what? That's not what he's being accused of. He's in fucking jail right now for exposing the Western Empire, and that's a fact, and that's something you can't argue against. So if you have something against Julian Assange, well, that's save it for a rainy day. Right now he's in jail for the wrong thing. And again, I haven't seen credible evidence. I have seen nothing but debunked articles and information on everything he had to deal with in, was it Sweden or Switzerland? One of those two, where he was accused of sexual assault that turned out to be completely false. And
well, they dropped the charges as they were wheeling him out of the embassy, so it looks like it wasn't really serious because they never followed up on him once they got a hold of him. And I don't give a shit if he is a libertarian and stuff like that. I call myself a leftist libertarian, but even when we talk about it, there's a lot of socialistic views I have. And I'm still ever evolving, seeing what's going on today in the modern age, because today the modern age is what we have to look at. Everything's different now. We had the microchip, we have computers in our life, we split the atom, we have nuclear bombs. Everything is different than it was 100 years ago. So different. I mean, it's thousands of years ahead. So we have to adjust our politics, our ideology to today's what's going on today and stuff like that. And when I call myself a leftist libertarian, it's not that I want to really, brag about my libertarianness, but I just want to point out the fact that freedom of speech, personal freedoms, freedom of information, what Julian Assange did is very important. It's vital, and nobody should suppress that stuff unless you're like encouraging death or violence. Then whatever you say should be able to be put out there, especially on these forums. And I don't want to hear the thing that, oh, it's a private company, whatnot, and stuff like that. Well, I mean, then treat everybody fairly across the board. You know what I'm saying? And so that's why I point out my leftist libertarianism, because I want to point out the fact that civil liberties do matter when you control speech. Speech is worth more than actual dollars and cents at the end of the day if you can control it, because then you control the narrative, you control everything. You control life, you control death. It
translates too into that, power.
So let's talk about the last thing really quick. And thank you very much to everybody who left these Super Ray contributions into the 76
It's always appreciated on this couch.
It's always appreciated on this couch and stuff like that. Since we were talking about elections before and stuff, there are stuff that's still going on in the United States since this 2020 election. The aftermath is not done. There are certain things that are set in place. A lot of individuals or a lot of individual groups have been out there fighting to get information out there and let it be known. This is the first time I'm ever sharing something from Brad Freeman, from the Brad blog, if it comes up. Brad Freeman is one of those guys. I know who Brad Freeman is. He doesn't know who I am, but I know who he is. Because when you're in the election integrity community, you talk to a lot of people, and a lot of people talk about this and that and whatnot. Now, Brad Freeman is one of those guys, I think, that is pretty awesome when he knows a lot about elections. However, I haven't liked his take on the 2020 election because, unfortunately, he plays team sports. And that comes into factor. It really clouts your vision and what's going on. And the fact is, like him, and there's guys like him, there's guys from the open source community, which I think they've been awful and been very, unfortunately, they've come off as disingenuous by not pointing out what happened in the 2020 election. Stuff like that. Right. They've been hiding behind the whole same argument. Well, we don't know for a fact what not. These are you don't have proof. You can't say that and stuff like that. But when you know all the aspects of elections, and Brad Freeman does, he knows a lot about elections. And unfortunately, I don't like his take there, but he does continue to do great work and put information out there. So the areas, it's just like when we're hearing Giuliani and all those people talking about certain shits, we're like, oh my God, why are you pointing out the ghost of Hugo Chavez past? Oh my God, why are you trying to say you're stunads if you don't think illegal immigrants are coming to vote, is what he said, his lines and stuff like that. But then he said a lot of other great things that really are true in our elections and stuff like that. So you have to take the good and the bad when it comes to everybody's point of view and their opinions when it comes to elections. So I'm going to point out something really good that Brad Freeman had just been talking about. This was a couple of weeks ago, and I wasn't necessarily going to break the story or talk about it, but then other things came into play that really kind of point this out, and it really goes back to what we did here in this channel when we went to New Hampshire. We're going to revisit that, and this is something we talked about. You know, and when Johnny kind of noticed this is when Johnny, I think he had that moment, that coming to realization of moments of elections. He's like, this shit is full of shit. Remember when we came back and it was like, holy cow, this is really, really bad. So I'm going to read from the Brad blog really quick. I'm going to start for years, the EAC. Now, we've talked about the EAC before, and it's the Elections Assistance Commission, which is just another kind of like out in front. They were created after the Haviv Act, after the George Bush elections and everything like that, that they're supposed to be out there to help and oversee elections and make sure things are fair, and they're going to validate the machinery to make sure they're all good. But really, they're just bought off by all these big companies, these big corporations that run these elections, whatnot, and they're in their pockets. So let's talk about it. For years, the EAC has consistently helped mislead the public regarding the dangers of modems inside of computer voting and tabulation systems. The EAC's original voluntary voting system guidelines, the VVSG, created about 15 years ago, allowed for the use of devices which cybersecurity experts have long warned can be used to introduce malware into systems that could disrupt elections or change results. In August of 2019, as we detailed on the program at the time with the cybersecurity journalist Kim Zetter, a group of security and voting systems experts discovered nearly 36 back-end election systems in 10 states connected to the internet over the last year, including some in critical swing states such as Wisconsin, Michigan, and Florida. In January of 2020, almost 6 months after Zetter's exclusive and disrupting report, Cynthia McFadden followed up with her own report at NBC News, in which, despite federal officials repeatedly and falsely declaring that the U.S. voting systems were never connected to the internet, remember, there's an air gap, the president of the nation's largest vendor, ES&S, that's the machinery we broke down with Niko and Tim Canova, Incorporated, conceded that at least 14,000 of the company's modems were being used in vulnerable voting and tabulation systems across the country, even as the 2020 election cycle was getting underway. Nonetheless, over the last 5 years, the EAC has been working with stakeholders, from election officials to cybersecurity experts to vendors, to develop new minimum security standards for the nation's voting systems, which they call the VVSG 2.0. The good news is that the draft of those final standards for the VVSG 2.0, made available for public comment last summer, included a ban on modems and other wireless communication devices and computerized voting and tabulation systems. The bad news: after the public comment period and before the new standards were officially adopted by the EAC commissioners, they apparently met in secret with several vendors and quietly changed the new standards to once again allow for modems and other wireless communication devices in the new voting systems. So that's all I wanted to kind of point out. Wow. There's a group out there, Free Speech for the People, which is another one of those groups too as well. They do some good things. They do some bad things. The guy who started the group, I can't remember his name, is John something. I remember him speaking with Ray McGovern against the Iraq war back in the days. This same group wanted to impeach Donald Trump, but in all fairness, the same gentleman, before he started this group, he wanted to impeach George Bush for war crimes too and starting certain things. So that is where we're at right now. They have been doing backdoor deals. Mm-hmm. So in other words, they've been saying, okay, we'll let it go. We'll be hush-hush. And there are modems now, fam, all in our systems. And that is something that is awful. It can change the elections. You could be sitting in Peru and you can change the results in Wisconsin. Very simple. That's the way it works. If you have a modem, you now have a vessel to get into the tabulation machines.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the first time I've heard that this can be done. And I 100% believe as long as you have that connection, anything can be done. Anything can be hacked. We have seen various, occasions where children have hacked the election system. And one case was in Florida. A little girl hacked that one. Yeah. I think she was 11 years old. It's crazy.
It was a DEF CON thing.
It was a DEF CON, but she was from Florida.
It was like a challenge.
She was from Florida.
Yeah.
That I know.
And so it's crazy. It's scary. It can happen, and this is what we've been talking about. I mean, if you believe our elections are fair and transparent, come on, there's freaking modems.
Yeah. I mean, and the whole time, remember this whole time, there are no modems. There's air gaps. They're not connected to the internet. This can't be done. Whatnot. And they're like, no, what's going on? And we've had little small pockets of legislation, whether it be Arizona, who fought for the audit, now they're getting it. In Michigan, in certain counties, they would be able to go into some of these machines. I couldn't believe they did it. Remember at one point they got in, I think it was in Georgia, Johnny, we were doing a story, when they're like, okay, they're going to be able to forensically audit these things, and all of a sudden they stopped and said, no, you can't do that. The judge literally the same day changed his decision because these are very powerful people right now that control these elections. Modem chips were embedded in voting systems and computer motherboards. This was taking place in Michigan now. We see this. We have the tweet up too as well from Robin, American Out Loud News. Bombshell investigators for attorney DiPerno reportedly discovered modem chips embedded in Michigan voter systems, computer motherboards. So they were everywhere. They were in ESNS. They were in Dominion machines. Modems are there. Now that's April 10th. They just found this out. They've been finding this out. They're going along and stuff. The mainstream media has lied about this.
Oh, really?
The mainstream media has lied. In fact, during the Georgia hearing I was watching, I was at my mom's, and you can see there's the Dominion voting machine. There's the chip. It's all there. When I was at my mother's in Florida, I was watching the Georgia hearing, and Jovan Hutton Pulitzer came up, and he had talked, and he said, plain and simple, he said, listen, ladies and gentlemen, they're saying that there's no modems, there's no way to access, no internet to access it. Well, guess what? We're accessing it right now. We are sending it information. It is sending information back to us. Jovan Hutton Pulitzer is going to be part of the Arizona audit and whatnot. He's going to authenticate the ballots and stuff. So, but he had talked about it. It's easy to get into these machines. So what does the mainstream media do? They lie. Fact check. Despite claims in Georgia Senate hearing, Dominion voting machines were not hacked because they don't have modems. It's a lie. It's a lie. They have them in all the machines. And this is what we talk about.
This article is saying there's no modems.
They're saying that there's no modem. This came out right after Jovan Hutton Pulitzer, and that's his picture right over there. He said this in the Georgia hearing. He was like, listen, we're into the machine right now as we speak. We stopped. We're in the machine right now. It's sending us information. We're sending it information. There are modems. They are lying to you. But what does the mainstream media do?
If you lie about this, it's something so technical, like technological, it's 1 + 1 = 2. You can't be like, oh no, it's actually 7.
Yeah.
Like that's what the media is doing because it's so obvious. You can easily prove that they're lying.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
It's just it's science. Like wow.
And that's they're using the Freedom of Information Act to try to get all these meetings. And what they said, Susan Greenhall, who's part of the I think it's the FSFP, the Free Speech for People. We talked about it. Good stuff, bad stuff. This group does. They do concentrate on hand marked ballots and hand counted and whatnot. once again, I think we have to start talking about the framework on and on, because me personally, and I don't know how you guys are, a lot of people, and even Benny Smith, hand-marked ballots. I don't care if a machine does it and spits it out and you have to look at it and you know that it was marked for the right person and stuff like that. That is not the argument to me and stuff. It's the tabulation part. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people want it hand-counted all the time. They think that there's no way to cheat that, but there is.
There is. You know? It's just a lot more difficult.
I want both. I want an open source system. Me personally, I would like an open source open source system that would spit out a number and then you hand count it to make sure they match. That's what I would like. But right now, I would settle with all hand counting as long as we threw the corporations out.
Yeah.
We shouldn't have corporations running our elections, proprietary software. And when the EAC is not looking after us, and they were put in place just to look after us, but yet they're on the taking money behind closed doors, and now we have to subpoena them and ask for the information. We want all the emails, we want the whole meetings, we want to know what's going on behind closed doors with our elections. And if they're saying, okay, well, you're not supposed to have modems, but don't worry about it, you can have it this time.
Yeah,
that's wrong. No. People need to go to jail for that. And not for nothing, I gotta really tip my hat off to John, because we found this out in New Hampshire when we went there. Take a look at this. What's the date on this, by the way? February 14th, 2020, over a year and change ago. They're breaking the news today that there's modems in the machines and stuff. Well, this wasn't a modem necessarily, but it was a SIM card. So, let's take a look.
It's plugged in. There's no internet connection at all.
Could you take us close to look at one? No?
I'd rather not.
No?
I'd rather not. That's not.
There's no USB, anything in there?
No, yes, there's no internet connection. That's what's good about New Hampshire. It's like, it's fault-proof. It's people-oriented. It's electronic. We actually did a hand count in January for a special election that we did, which has a whole new set of rules. But there's no internet here. There's no hacking these things. Okay? There's no hacking.
But is there an SD card that could be inserted?
No, there's no SD.
So y'all don't have anyone with SD card?
We have like a SIM card that goes in there, but it's not. There's no internet connection at all.
So right there. So he admits there's a SIM card in the ballot counting machine. So now, what is the capability of a SIM card? I mean, I did a lot of research on this. I mean, here's what this.
How many computers are in there? What would your answer be? There was actually an opening question in the university class I had, and I think it's a great question. Maybe some people would respond with 1, it's a single small smartphone computer, but maybe you knew that the SIM card is actually a tiny computer itself. Your phone computer communicates with the tiny embedded SIM card computer. And that computer can't do much, but it can do a lot more than some of you might think. In a very simple way, you can imagine this small computer to just contain a private key, and with public-private key cryptography, you can use it to authenticate to something. And the idea is that it's super hard to extract the private key from the smart card. Not comparable to the simple magnetic strip on a credit card. The private key never leaves the chip. If you want to do some crypto, your phone will communicate with the SIM card and ask it to do it, in the same way a credit card reader using the chip will do so. Nobody can clone a SIM card or credit card that way. There are attacks on smart cards, which I have touched on before with the power analysis and other crazy hardware hacks, but generally the cost is pretty high to do that. But in theory, if you could extract the private key from it, you could clone a SIM card or clone a credit card chip. So you can't clone a SIM card that easily, but what if you just steal a SIM card? Can you just use it? And that is why you need a PIN for your credit card when you use the chip, or...
It goes even more in depth, but basically the thing there is that you can copy a SIM card and get the key. So SIM cards are hackable.
Yeah.
Why is there one in the ballot counting machine? It should only be hardware or software that's uses basic calculator, your little hand calculator, $10 hand calculator, software or hardware should be in that and nothing else. I mean, I don't know why a SIM card can freaking talk to a telephone provider. So like a telephone provider.
There you go. Johnny broke that 14 months ago, Johnny. You got that stuff. I remember we were driving to the airport. We were talking about it. It was like, okay, wait. What are the capabilities of a SIM card? Should a SIM card be anywhere near an election machine that says that has an air gap and can't be monitored or controlled through the internet?
Yeah,
There
I mean, there shouldn't be anything like that. It should just be straight up like it's just most countries around the world do not use the system we use because of that, because it's so vulnerable to hacking.
Yeah.
And they also don't use mail-ins in most countries because that's also vulnerable to hacking. They make people go out there and it's compulsory voting, which means in Peru and Ecuador, for example, you have to vote or you get fined. And like you have to, or you can just you can vote a null ballot, which is 0, but you still have to vote. And it's just all these things. It encourages participation, all these things. And they have to bring in their in Peru, for instance, DNI. So it's an ID every single time they vote. So a lot of things that people think, this is the way we do elections, progressive, democratic, in other countries would be considered insecure. And we just have so many insecurities in our election system.
Yeah, the fact that this proprietary software we can't even look at, it's not an open source code. Now you have a modem in there or you have a SIM card. You can change the results from, wherever you're at. It's black box voting. It's so stupid. I mean, you don't have to be a computer genius to realize that the fact that we can't even see the software. Whatever goes in is not necessarily going to come out, especially when we can't check it. And it's owned by all these major corporations, and they're paying off the EAC, or they're having their way with the EAC, and the EAC is letting them do whatever they want and get away with it. They're letting them do what they want and get away with it. So anybody who's friendly high up, and all these companies at the end of the day, you don't even know who the major stakeholders are in these companies, because just like their software is proprietary, their ownership is proprietary. They had a whole lawsuit case about this, North Carolina, trying to figure out what it's like, these hedge funds from all these offshore groups that you don't know who's investing the money in and holding the switches. So it is scary, and now it's breaking out left and right. And this is, once again, that's why a lot of people think, whoa. A lot of the Democrats like, whoo, we got this over with. Let's get out of there. Let's move on. I shouldn't say the Democrats, the establishment, the two-party illusion. Ooh, we got the election. Joe Biden's in. Let's move on. Let's go on. But there are some state legislations that are fighting to find out what's more, find out for more information, just like they did in Michigan, to get into some of these machines. We have it coming up in Arizona. So it's not over. We have to continue to talk about the framework and the way these elections are run, because that's what we need. We need election revolution. Fam talked about it. She said it. We need to scrap this shit, start over from scratch, and get a system that is transparent and fair. What do you got, Johnny?
During the show, Victory Jin tagged me and said, we called it. Breaking Arizona judge orders a temporary halt to the Arizona forensic election audit until Monday. Arizona Democrats sued this morning to stop the audit, citing security issues.
There it goes.
Which is what they were talking about in that neoliberal clip that we played from the news.
Yep.
There it goes.
Yep. Guys,
if
our elections are so transparent, why does the establishment try so hard to
stop it? Yeah.
To hide any sort of audit? Why do you think that I'm serious, even if you think that Donald Trump lost fairly, why are they so adamant against audits? Doesn't that make you a little bit suspect as to maybe that there's something they're trying? I mean, if it was any situation and not elections, right? If you suspect your fucking boyfriend or girlfriend, whatever, is cheating on you, right? And then they're like, and you're like, let me see. I don't know. This is a bad example. Let me see your phone. No. Like, it's just a bad example, right? But what I'm saying is, like, if they have nothing to hide, right? If people start acting all sketched out, right? Like, no, don't, like, it's obvious. They're so sketched out. They were making up an entire fucking thing. You guys heard that interview. Like, if they have nothing to hide, this is not even something private. This is like elections. This is what we should all know. The reason Americans, let's say that Donald Trump lost fairly, well, then don't you want to prove the QAnoners and the Stop the Steal people that they were so wrong that Donald Trump lost because Joe Biden was a better candidate to people. He presented himself better, whatever, the COVID and all that stuff. And he got more votes than Barack Obama, 10 million more votes than Barack Obama. If you want to believe all that, fine. Okay. But why is it so bad to just look into this and do an actual audit? Why are they fighting so hard?
And when they do this, what they did right there, what Johnny just showed, about them once again citing security issues to stop, you're just solidifying those QAnoners or anybody else on the right, all their thoughts and stuff like that. It's like
this is why they don't trust the government.
Yeah, you're constantly hiding the truth. You just don't want any transparency. This whole Big Brother code, just trust us, it's good. And if you don't trust us to go along with this, you're stupid. You're just a QAnoner. You're a conspiracy theory. Why are they stopping this right here? Why are they stopping an audit? What is the security issues? I mean, this is ridiculous.
Oh, because these Republicans are just trying to start stuff, and I mean that's what people. But that's no logical reason. Give me an actual valid reason why they're so against this. The only thing I can think of.
A fucking cartoon. We live in a cartoon.
Yeah, and I again, we called it. We knew that they were going to do whatever they could. They don't want this to get out. Yeah. There's powerful people, as Pasta says, behind the scenes here. There's powerful people in these areas where they have to control the narrative. They have to manage the narrative. And if that narrative gets out where American elections are rigged 100%, you can't deny it, then they lose. People will stop listening, and they need you to comply. They need you to listen and swallow the information they give you in mainstream media. They need you to think that everybody who questions anything is a conspiracy theorist. They need to discredit the witness. This is what they do. They make up smears about people, and they use personal attacks in order to get you to distrust the source of what's being said. And most people fall for those smears, right? And so then when somebody presents to you, hey, like, look at this election, people can't look at it on logic. They have to rely on their emotion. Oh, it's Republican, so it must be corrupt. Yeah. And that's how the thing goes.
It's terrible. Yeah. It's disgusting. And we need to just keep blowing it up as far as the elections are concerned. All election integrity activists look at this thing in a nonpartisan way. It's just a free election. That's all we want.
Or it should be. No, not all of them look at it this way.
Not all of them, but any real one looks at it in a nonpartisan way. I mean, I've talked to some conservative-minded people, in the EAS in California, not the EAS as far as it's concerned, you know what I'm saying? The EIP California. And they've said, Pasta, this is a nonpartisan issue. And the way they spoke to their thoughts on people on the left and whatnot, and it was like, okay, I get it. You know what I'm saying? They're like, no, I think that it's not about left or right. It's about most Americans just want to live a good, happy life, and they just want the truth. They want the cynicism gone. You know what I'm saying? They just want it out. They want to, if Joe Biden won the election, they want to know for sure. And they don't understand why everybody's trying to hide stuff. Yep. They're trying to block transparency, and they're not allowing the work to be checked. And we've known this from the get-go, that it's like, the whole system is just fucked up, and we need to keep fighting against it. Even with the whole Georgia bill too as well. You know what I'm saying? The way they kind of frame that it's the new Jim Crow. And somebody said that Jackie Robinson would be happy that the Major League Baseball moved out of Atlanta. No, Jackie Robinson would be disgusted that you are trying to say this is the new Jim Crow from the laws they made from absentee ballots, from mail-in ballots. That's ridiculous. And they were just simply digressing to the old rules of having the proper ID on the absentee ballots. So it is what it is. But I guess we'll just keep on trying to talk about it as much as we can.
Johnny, did you have anything?
Eddie Villegas left a Super Ray, and Prime Cat also left a Super Ray. Thank you so much for the Super Ray contributions, everybody. It is always appreciated on the couch. We had over 80 people watching on the Rokfin today. Oh, we got another person coming in. We had close to 250 today, smaller crowd. Lucky Burrito and Art Music. Hey, Lucky Burrito. Hey, fam, been listening while working on some fun projects. Handmade wooden spoons is the project today. I want one of those. Thank you for speaking the truth. Keep fighting, fam. Leo, the adorablest dog, and Neville, the devil, send love. Neville and Leo. Leo and Neville. Aww. That is so great. Thank you so much, Lucky Burrito. Thank you for those lovely gifts, too, as well.
Thank
you. We'll be wearing them when we need to wear them, for sure. Pasta Jardula is here. That should be it, I should say. I was trying to wrap it up quickly. Thank you very much for watching, everybody.
What? Was that a chip malfunction?
That was just the malware just got to me.
The malware was psh,
it was infected by a modem.
Pasta was hacked.
Through a SIM card.
Yeah, they hacked
it. Well, that's it.
Guys, yes, that's it.
Do you have anything you have to speak about over the weekend, what you're doing? Or?
Oh, yeah. So, I guess last minute I'm going to a event with, Niko's going to. Niko and I will both be there. We're the only... I would say some of the only true leftists at this panel, where we're going to be talking about issues with conservatives. We're going to be debating conservatives, basically. We're going to be discussing certain progressive issues. I think Niko's is like something to do with money or, government funding, etc. And for me, it's the Green New Deal. I have a very, very different take on the Green New Deal than most of your AOC type of progressives, because it's not good enough. The Green New Deal is not good enough. It doesn't do anything to address our imperialism. It doesn't do anything to address the farming issues, like the exploitation of livestock, more so specifically, and what that does to our environment. The Green New Deal is planning to use Israeli technology. There's just so many things. It doesn't ban fracking. There's all these things that are wrong with the Green New Deal. And so I'm going to lay those out from the left, because that's, you can't criticize the Green New Deal. But I'm going to, because fuck that. And it's a resolution. It's non-binding. It really means very little. And it's not going to do much. It's just going to funnel money and privatize the environment for the corporations. So there's so much more. And I'll be talking about that. I have zero problem talking to conservatives and blowing their brain now when it comes to what a real leftist thinks, because I am not AOC, and you're not going to hear me use the same language that she does. And so we'll see how that goes. I'm excited to have discourse. It's called discourse. I think they promote discourse between all types of people. They have libertarians, right wingers, and leftists, and yeah.
All right, so we'll be back next week, and we'll catch it up there. Thank you to all our Patreons. Thank you to all our Rokfin people. Thank you for everybody who left some dollars and cents on our PayPal account. We do appreciate that. Every bit helps. I mean, we actually showed today what we did when we went to New Hampshire, how it all ties in. So you guys sent us out there to do that. So thank you so much. Every bit helps right now, especially with the demonetization of YouTube.
Yep, we're still demonetized.
Still there. So it does help out. So I want to thank you all for the Super Ray contributions today and everything else. The Patreons, the Rokfin, like we said. Keep watching us and keep supporting us. For Pasta Jardula,
Fiorella,
Johnny Sue on those 1s and 2s. That was better, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Convo out. Buy a plant.
Buy a plant. Oh, God.